Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Control Port Podcast. So 271. I'm Benjamin Yoder, here today to talk to you about video games. It's gonna be a pretty diverse week this week. A little bit of topics here and there that aren't huge per se. Updates on games I've been playing. Just talking a little bit about upcoming video ideas and where that direction's gonna be going. And then also talking about a couple news stories about some games. There's some updates. One, something that I'm pretty excited about. The other one, something I completely forgot about from a Comiket from 2018. I wanted to follow up on that because apparently, if not that game was showed again, kind of the follow-up successor to what that previous game was, although I couldn't find the original game. It was under a different name, and I couldn't find that game having come out, so I think it might be the same video game, but yes. Anyways, so to get started here, stuff I've been playing, nothing new, unfortunately. Not going to find out about any cool niche little things here, unfortunately. One Piece Unlimited Adventure, we started streaming that again. Nothing really new there. Again, just the scavenging, hunting game, whatever kind of thing. Looking forward to doing the community review for that. I'll be curious to see, exactly what kind of score it ends up getting. I still think it's a good video game. It's a game with not a lot of variety to it, and I think it does not lend itself well to like a stream audience, honestly. And I also don't think it's a game that's like particularly appealing from a One Piece audience, honestly. There's a couple of like fan servicey things that I think in regards to boss fights and things like that, but like I think there's a lot of things about the tone that just, from what little I know about One Piece, seems like it maybe just didn't quite hit the mark. So I think I'll probably end up reviewing that game a little more generously than the the rest of the community on that, but we still have like 2 streams left though, so like if you're just waiting in on that, I think we'll probably have that community review, towards the end of this month, basically. Although if you can't make it for any reason, always remember, feel free to message me your thoughts and things. Generally try to keep it short. I can't read like full reviews of video games if I get a bunch of them, kind of thing. And I'll try to boil your points down and bring it into the conversation when we do those community reviews. But if you're there, then you can actively be there, and I can sit there and give you a hard time about your opinions, because I feel like most of the time I'm just like, oh, is that really what we're trying to say? Let's think about this. What's the real problem here? So, what's the way we can word this that might be more accurate? I'll get this more specific and things like that, or in some cases more general, because we don't have a lot of space on that community review list thing. So, but looking forward to that. Got to figure out what we're gonna do in between this game and Naple Tale when we start that when we start that up, but looking forward to moving on soon, hopefully. That game's just a little longer than it should be, I think, in my opinion, so but we'll finish it. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, though. I did finish that video game, not on stream, just in my own personal time. I will say my original thoughts and feelings that I conveyed about that game on the first podcast I did after playing it largely came true. Combat's just not quite what I want it to be. World design, also not quite what I want it to be. I will say, I think I mentioned this last week, story definitely did a lot better than I thought it would. I'm generally very happy with it. I think that's a point of disagreement I seem to have with other fans of the series who I've seen on Twitter and stuff and on Reddit. Seems like the general sentiment is that maybe it doesn't build out the world in the way that they want it to. Personally, I've never really believed in the whole like Xeno perfect works universe thing. I've always kind of wanted them to keep their stories contained to individual worlds, and this game does a very good job of that while still wrapping in stuff from Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2, but in a very like fan servicey kind of way, I feel like, and in some ways that comes off as tacky, I'll be honest with you, but there's a couple of moments that I'm like, oh, this thing, I'm interested in this little story point that you've given me, that's kind of neat, but it's not like anything earth-shattering and things like that. So I will say though, like as somebody who's been stressed about the potential ramifications of a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 ending and how that opens things up and tries to connect things where I really don't think it needed to connect. I personally, I think they've said otherwise, that they're like, oh, this is all the plan from the beginning. I personally, if it was the plan from the beginning that all these games are connected, it did not come off that way, I will say, personally. I feel like it did not really work out the way they did. So if they do decide to do this kind of greater story, I think like limiting it to a trilogy will probably be for the best. And then B, I think the idea of like creating like with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2, having separate worlds from each other, but then like having connections between those worlds, I think is a good approach to that kind of thing. And I think there's ways they can better connect those worlds in the future if they better plan from the start that like, hey, these stories are connected. I think that will be, Xenoblade Chronicles as a franchise is popular enough at this point. I think they have the luxury to be able to do that. I think the bigger thing is for me is like each individual game needs to be a satisfying story, though. I think that's, in my opinion, that's how it should be, versus like, Xenogears Episode 5 and, the however large, I think it's like 6 episodes of Xenosaga is what they were planning or something crazy like that. I don't remember exactly what it is, but, it was all, I just think that the ambition there was a little too high. But I think at this point, I'm confident enough with them and how they build individual stories that a game that is a little more ambitious and connects different parts of the different Xeno worlds and things like that, I think could be better. I just think it needs to be better planned going forward. But I don't think that's like an anxiety that I have about the Xeno series anymore. I think Xenoblade Chronicles 3 kind of laid those to rest, and that's the one thing I think this game really did for me as a Monolith Soft fan is make me feel better about the world building of the Xeno franchise, and it makes me hope that they do they reach out a little bit more at the next game kind of thing. Again, as somebody who like doesn't particularly like Monolith Soft because of their storytelling so much, because like I like JRPG stories, and that kind of just where Xeno stories fall for me. So in that part I'm interested in, but the real part as a Monolith Soft fan, the real part of that game that I really want to be good is the world design and the combat design. And as time goes on, I think world design is becoming less and less of a factor of what defines a Monolith Soft game for me. There's a lot of I need to go back and revisit it, but like the original Baten Kaitos series does a lot of interesting things with the dungeon design particularly. Also, that's a beautiful world from an art perspective as well, I will say. But then like Xenoblade Chronicles and what it did with like the giants and like having areas shaped like different body parts and things like that, I think that was like a really cool idea, and the implementation was very well done. That's not even talking about the pathing stuff I talk about in Xeno games all the time with like, I talk about it pretty in depth on the Torna video, but like how I think a lot of the world design of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Torna specifically are built in a way that like it draws the players down certain paths, and there's like multiple of those paths that you can kind of navigate between, so it makes it feel like it's more open than it probably really is from like a content perspective, because you can't explore. But anyways, so I think this game does a very good job of hitting that latter thing, but I don't think it really does a good job with that first thing of just like building a world that feels recognizable. You do get that moment of like, hey, I can look across the pit that we're like standing by, and I can see like the place I was at 20-30 hours ago kind of thing, right? And that still has a similar effect, but it's an effect that's been done. I think it's an effect that's been done better in the Xenoblade Chronicles series, personally. So that's how I feel about it. But hey, I think world design is becoming less and less a thing that defines a Monolith Soft game for me in a lot of ways. But and then also the combat stuff. I didn't want to give them too much trouble for the combat because it's clear they tried something. I think the bigger problem is just as we stick within the Xenoblade franchise, and as Xenoblade as a franchise gets more defined, it's going to make it harder and harder to switch out those pieces with interesting things that don't break kind of the core mechanics. And this game's really built really heavily on top of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It does bring in elements from Xenoblade Chronicles 1. It's kind of interesting. The ideas are interesting, but like the execution and like the player interaction with those ideas are not particularly interesting. It's more of just like, hey, we made a game where we tried to combine Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 in some ways. And, I appreciate the thought elements and themes and extending those themes into the gameplay. I think those are really cool that they did that. It's just the execution. You don't feel it when you're playing the game, I guess is the big thing. You don't feel that connection between those two games. It feels like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That's what it feels like without the elemental combo system, which was like the defining feature of that game in a lot of ways. So, it's kind of weird. I did do a little digging actually. I want to be clear before I get into this. Like, I'm not saying that like, hey, one person is responsible for a bunch of stuff on a game. Like, tons of people work on these games. Each person has like different hands in them and things like that. But one thing that I thought was noteworthy is that Makoto Shimamoto, who's been working on the Xeno battle systems basically since Xenogears, and the one exception, I think Xenoblade Xenosaga Episode 3, he's listed as like a special thanks for the battle system rather than a true, like, person working on it. Which, given how that game is from a battle system perspective, makes a lot of sense. Like, he was the one who seemed to be kind of the lead designer on a lot of the battle systems, with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 specifically, I think, and is the one that I remember him specifically being kind of like the lead one on. But I think he led Xenoblade Chronicles X as well, but below him was Mitsuhiro Hagi, and that Mitsuhiro Hagi was the lead on Xenoblade Chronicles 2's battle system, it looks like. It looks like, it's based off the positioning on the list. I don't think they've, like, specifically say lead battle system person. So, again, there's a lot of assumptions. We're doing video game development fan fiction here now. But he's Makoto Shimamoto is not listed on the battle system design for this game. He's just in the UI section in this one. So I'm guessing he took a step back with this game, especially given Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It seems like Hagi, I don't know how to pronounce it, was the one leading that project, and Torna as well, which I will say, I'm not pointing fingers. I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 battle system is one of a great example of a Monolith Soft battle system in a lot of ways. There are problems with it, don't get me wrong, but it's a great example of like a battle system that is a Monolith Soft one. So I don't think it's necessarily like, Makoto Shimamoto's gone. This the death of a Monolith Soft series for me or something like that, but thought it was worth mentioning. Anyways, so all that aside, glad I finished that up. Got some post-game content stuff I need to work on still, and I'll probably keep going through, but probably more casually. I don't think it's really going to affect my opinion of the game going forward at this point, so that's what I've been playing. But hey, let's continue the Xenoblade conversation. I want to talk a little bit about, things I've been working on and what I expect coming up next. Last week I said August is going to be pretty light, and that generally should be true. I think August is not going to be like an explosive month in terms of content. I got a pickups video coming out this week that you can go and look at. And then I think the space after that's blank. So I got to figure out what's going to go in there. It will probably either be, if I finish it, the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 video before that, we're going to talk about that in a second. If I finish Xenoblade Chronicles 3 video before that, that will go in that slot. If I don't, it'll probably be like a Wii Japanese commercial video or something like that. So that's probably what's going to end up at the end of this month. So anyways, but I started work on 3 projects for videos. Smaller video projects, I will say. They're not big ones. One is the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 video. This is a really tricky script that I've been trying to write because, when I'm thinking about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, my brain space is like, at some point, I want to write a whole, like, hey, here's the things that define a Monolith Soft game for me in a lot of ways. And like, here's the strength. Let's talk about the series and how each of these games implement those things. But it's going to require me to replay a lot of Baten Kaitos. It's going to require me to ideally play through the whole Xenosaga trilogy again, play through Soma Bringer. There's a lot of things that need to go in to make that video, and it's just not realistic I'm going to make that anytime soon. But I would like to get my thoughts out there about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So I'm trying to ride that line of, not doing a review for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Like, my opinion seems to line up, when it comes to, like, the pure quality of the game, seems to line up with the rest of the world. I think this is, like, a solid 9.0 video game kind of thing, right? I think that's generally where it's, like, floating from a score-wise kind of thing, and I would agree with that. There's a lot of great things about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, from a gameplay perspective, as a JRPG, things like that. But it's more of the Monolith Soft perspective of, like, what I'm disappointed in, I think, and trying to ride that line of, like, not going too deep into Baten Kaitos, but still talking about, what things in Baten Kaitos, kind of influenced me and what my opinion of like what Monolith Soft games should be, Xenosaga Episode 2, things like that. But again, not like going and talking about those in depth, more of just talking about it in the scope of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Side note, Makoto Shimamoto did not work on Baten Kaitos. I actually took some time to look into the Baten Kaitos credits as well, because I was curious, because it's a Tri-Ace plus or Tri-Crescendo plus Monolith Soft joint, and it's kind of confusing who worked on what, and I won't just give you the long details, but basically, Baten Kaitos, the original one, the combat system was developed by both a Monolith Soft and a Tri-Crescendo person, and then Baten Kaitos Origins, it was just a Tri-Crescendo person. Again, it's not just one person, there's a whole team and all that stuff, so like what actually happens and who makes what decisions, a whole other thing. But anyways, that was kind of a note thing, but so I'm trying to ride that line, and ideally, if I can, I want to get this video out by the end of this month. Might have to go into September, ideally get a video out sooner rather than later, but, I feel like I kind of missed the window already for, like, hitting that initial Xenoblade Chronicles 3, YouTube, video time frame, but at the same time, there's no way I can compete against people who get like, the games with the early access. So I'm trying to focus on my message of what I, with my experience with past Monolith Soft games, can say, and what is more distinct about my things to say, and how I can present that, and how I can shape that into a video kind of thing. So hopefully sometimes, I haven't finished that script, so I don't really know where that's going to go yet, but that is the intention. I did actually throw together a very quick script for Doraemon for the Nintendo 64. I've been talking about doing this for a long time, and I just spent a lot of time thinking about it, and thankfully just kind of found the words for it, I think. I'm trying to something a little bit different with this Doraemon video, though, where instead of, saying, hey, look at Buddy Mission Bond, hey, look at, Kududen Squash, I'm saying, hey, Mario 64, things about Mario 64, here are things about Doraemon that I think could be applied to a Mario game. That I think would be interesting to be put in a Mario game. So I'm using the context of a Mario 64 to drive the conversation in that game, but bringing in this other game that is lesser known that, generally wouldn't probably be looked up much. I want to try to see how that would work. It's something that I think I tried a little bit with the Kududen Squash video when it comes to like Monkey Ball. But I think it was a little, it wasn't as forceful as it will probably be with the Doraemon one, where I'm really going to start that video with like Mario 64. Here's a thing about Mario 64 that I think Doraemon, or they could learn from Doraemon kind of thing, right? So that's actually pretty much scripted and done. I recorded the audio. There's a couple different changes I need to make, but otherwise I'm just editing the video itself now. I do need some Mario gameplay, so I got to spend some time just playing Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy. I think I have enough Odyssey footage. I might need a little Odyssey footage. I definitely have enough Bowser's Fury footage, though. So just got to do some recording on that kind of stuff. I need to do a lot of just recording in general. I need to play some Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and get some recording of that, too, as well, for the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 video, because that's the only Xenoblade Chronicles game I don't have a lot of footage of. So yeah. And then I'm also working on the Sparkling Feather video. I just need to work on the script more as well. That's, PCFX video. The problem with that is just there's a lot of additional things that need to get made around that video. I'm going to guess that's going to happen sometime late September, honestly. I think the Doraemon video is going to probably be done first and foremost, but I would like to get the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 video finished or out first kind of thing. So that's kind of what it look like at timeline-wise for videos, although honestly, what it means and if that's realistic and what changes, there's a lot of things that could happen. So especially since October is going to be very busy. I just got my plane tickets and things for Portland Retro Game Expo. I also got my panel accepted for Sin City Anime, so I got to prepare that. I'm still waiting to hear back from KomoriCon, and I also have a family trip within that month, so it's going to be kind of a nightmare month for me. I'm going to probably have to pre-record some streams for a couple of days that month because I will not be in town, or I got to record early. One or the other. Probably record early. That's probably the better thing to do, honestly. So yeah. And then just like a couple of other smaller updates for the YouTube Buddy Mission Bond video. Again, the initial reviews, thank you for everybody who shared that. The initial reviews were actually very good. It did crash pretty hard after that, I will say, though. There was like 24-hour period that like 2 people looked at it. So unfortunately, I think that video is actually dead now, for now, unless some major change happens that changes, how that game gets, distributed through the algorithm or whatever, which can happen. The Nier video I did also was dead in the water for like 3 months before all of a sudden it just caught on somehow, and I don't know how. So hopefully it gets around there. I got a lot of compliments from that video, so again, appreciate everybody who gave compliments on that video and all that stuff. I had that Buddy Mission Bond Blu-ray plus CD unboxing video that came out as well. That was part of the Patreon originally. So that is freely available, though. That's a lot of the type of content I'm doing on Patreon is like, hey, I bought a thing. I'm unboxing it because I would just open this otherwise. So for the Patreon, I will make it somewhat fancier, I guess. And then article ratings and stuff as well as things I've been doing there too. So speaking of the Patreon, it's Patreon time. Thank you again to the Patreon people who subscribe. There is bonus videos that they get at $5 a month. This week they got a Kami Nazo, or last week they got a Kami Nazo playthrough part 1. to go alongside that Buddy Mission Bond one to make up for the fact that I gave it out for free. So basically, I would like to make a Kaminazo video at some point. And I just want to, and I had to record myself playing it already because of how that game works. As a Switch game you beat using paper, I need to record myself. So I just went ahead and was like, okay, well, I'll do recordings of myself and just post it on Patreon. So exactly how those are going to end up in the end, I don't really know. But the first one's pretty much a raw recording for the most part. A couple of cuts here and there, but nothing big. But anyways, thank you again to Jillian, Henry Dagger, Discreet, as well as Paul Daniel for joining in on the Patreon. I mentioned before the $5 level, that is a bonus video level, but you can also ask a podcast question by just going to the podcast post that goes up every Monday at 3 p.m. where it has the question for the next week already included in there. But if you give me a different question, I will answer a different question. The question I got this week is from Jillian, though, and her question is, what food and games do you wish you could pull out of the screen and eat? Paul Daniel gave a little response to this, which I always encourage you. Hey, if you got a response to one of the podcast questions, go ahead and include it in the comments. I'm happy to discuss it a little bit on the show. Again, try to keep it fairly short and fairly simple for the most part if you can. But I'm always happy to hear what people have to say about games and things like that. Make this podcast about more than just me, although it's called One Controller Port because it is just me. Anyways, so, but Paul Daniel gave his response of Burger Time, the arcade game, which I will say, I don't know if I've ever looked at the Burger Time burgers and thought they looked particularly appealing, but they are massive and very distinct at the very least. So I think it's a good choice at the very least. I don't have any particular game. I feel like that's a kind of a modern thing with games. Like, hey, look at how good our food looks at. Like, Monster Hunter, Final Fantasy 15, Xenoblade to some extent now. Every game, all these games have cooking that give you stat boosts, and they have pretty graphics with all those. I'm going to answer something I think of more general, is that when I was growing up, I always liked how dongos looked, which are these little mochi balls that you can get on a stick in Japan, and usually they're like green, white, and pink or something like that. They don't have to be that though. I always thought they looked really appealing growing up, and I always kind of wanted to try a dongo. And when I went to Japan, I finally got to try one. I didn't get like the green, white, pink one, but I got one which was like all white, but then it was covered in like a soy sauce glaze and stuff like that. And that was really good. So there you go. I achieved. I'm not much of a food person, I will say. So when people were like, "What food are you gonna get in Japan?" I'm just like, I don't know, food, I guess. Like, I don't care really. But dongos is one. I wasn't planning on that, but I came across them. I was like, oh yeah, I'll do this. So I went ahead and got those, and they were delicious. They were deliciously good. Very soft, warm. I was there in the winter, so it worked really well. And the sauce was very sweet and soury kind of thing, if I recall correctly. It's like a soy sauce kind of sauce, so kind of, it's good. It was very good. So pretty straightforward Patreon question again for this week. Again, thank you so much for contributing to that, especially as I still am figuring out my life and what I'm doing. I'm very thankful for people who are donating to the Patreon. I need to update the Patreon post on the website, by the way, with the new free content. I'll be planning to do that sometime here in the near future, hopefully. Anyways, we don't have too many more things to talk about left here, so we just got a couple of smaller news stories, though this first one I'm very excited about. We've talked in the past about Kirby Dream Buffet. There's an announcement that I'll be launching on August 17th, so by the time you're hearing this on Monday, that will be Wednesday, so I'm very much looking forward to playing that. They've been kind of advertising that game as a 3-mode kind of game. I'm personally mostly interested in the racing part of that game. Basically, go around with Kirby, pick up strawberries, and then, even if you win the race, what matters more is if you have the most strawberries. Getting in first place gives you more strawberries, though. Very Excite Truck-ish in that way. So I'm very excited to look at that. I'm very excited for any Nintendo racer that's not a Mario Kart game. So very much looking forward to that. They showed off some copy abilities and costumes in a trailer they put out, as well as I think the price point's $15. So, but yeah, August 17th, I'll definitely be picking that up. Definitely be playing that. So look out for me online. I'm gonna eat those strawberries. More strawberries than you. Gonna get fat on you too. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, so that was pretty exciting. And then Last week I mentioned going through the Comiket stuff and like maybe I was going to do some kind of video recording. I thought about it and I was like, I'm just going to go through it, like especially because it's a light week this week. I'm just going to go through it and talk about stuff on the podcast. And looking at it though, a lot of it is like stuff that like I really can't say a lot about. Like it's one of those things I've been trying to kind of gatekeep a little more on the podcast, is like talking about things because I have a reason to talk about them, not so much because it's like this is a cute looking thing, right? I think we talked about like ketchup and mayo at some point. Like ketchup and mayo, I didn't really have anything to say about ketchup and mayo other than just being like, this thing exists and it's cute kind of thing. So I'm trying to generally avoid that kind of stuff unless a game jumps out at me for any reason. So a lot of stuff in Comiket, you know, looks like pretty standard stuff for the most part, but that's just kind of how Comiket is in a lot of ways. So anyway, so I went through and watched that stuff, but the one that I really just wanted to kind of talk about, because we actually do have a history of this on the podcast. I was not aware of this initially. It looked very familiar though. I was like, this looks like the same developer. And sure enough, it is. And it actually is a developer that we've been talking about. Well, not been talking about, but we have talked about with the name. The developer name is Black Bastard. They worked on the Ghost Solid 9 game, Ghost Solid series. There's multiple of them. Some of those games are in English, by the way. I'll link their website because they have download links to the English versions of those games and things like that there in the description here. But I was not aware that they were the ones working on a game that we talked about in 2018 called Cyber Ninja at Comiket as well. Cyber Ninja looks very similar to this game that is now called Nekonin, so basically Cat Ninja, if you want to say that. I mean, it's Cat Nin, I don't know, but you know, it's called Nekonin basically, and it looks very similar. And so I actually tried to look in to see if Cyber Ninja came out, and I could not find any like signs that Cyber Ninja came out. And why we talked about Cyber Ninja in the first place was because it looked very Super Paper Mario-esque. It's like a ninja game, but you have a character that's going around an environment and you can like turn the worlds and, you know, 90-degree angles kind of thing, and that would change your perspective and things like that and how you would platform to the areas in a very like Super Paper Mario kind of way. And actually Ghost Solid has that same kind of similar gimmick to it where that you can rotate the environments. A different type of game, like one, well, it kind of reminded me of like Cave Story more than anything, Ghost Solid, where this feels more like a, I guess like a 3D platformer. So again, I don't think Cyber Ninja came out. I could be wrong. Maybe it is a video game that is out that you can get. I couldn't find any mention of it on his website or anything like that, or their website. I don't know who they are. But on their Twitter account, they did post videos of the game side by side, and they said 3 years later, Cat Ninja or something like that. So this new Nekonin game is more of like just a traditional 3D kind of action game, it seems like, featuring the same cat but with different color hair, same model and things like that. I will say in some ways the game looks less interesting to me now because it is just kind of like more of a traditional 3D action game, although, you know, I do think like some of the concepts, like the core concepts, seem pretty similar overall. But yeah, I do personally just really like that Super Paper Mario gimmick of like rotating the camera 90 degrees and that changing the world. But this seems more like a behind the back 3D ninja game now in some ways. But it still looks cute. They got a lot of fun animations, a little cat, like they're all chibi little cat girls or whatever. And so like when you like get in like the mud that makes you walk slower, their face is all like, while they're like swinging their arms around and stuff when they're in the mud. It's still a very cute looking thing. But yeah, I was just like, oh yeah, I forgot we talked about this in like 2018. So it was like fun to mention it again. Game's not out yet. Is the trial version that was at Comiket. I didn't see a download link or anything, so you might have to have been there and buy their like last time I was there, how it was like you'd pay 100 yen, they'd give you a card, and on the back of that card it's like a download like code or something. Or they give you a link plus a password to the download. So I don't know if there's a way to get that otherwise. I probably should check to see if it's like a booth or something. I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, I would like to check that out at some point. But I probably should play one of the Ghost Solid games because they are in English and I can read English. I cannot read Japanese. So yeah, anyways, I think a shorter episode this week, probably. I'm not sure. I don't have the right timer here because I had to start over and start recording again because I got my brain all messed up in part of the Xenoblade Chronicles conversation. I was like talking about the video, but also talking about the game, and I was like, I need to separate these things out. So wasted some time. But anyways, that's it for this week, though. Thank you again for coming. OneControlPort.com is the website. Like I said, there's a pickups video coming up this week. Most of the stuff in there is from Japan Retro Direct. So if you are like, wow, these games all look like they're in pristine condition, and I would like to buy random games like this on the internet, Japan Retro Direct is always where I would recommend going for that, because you can buy a bunch of stuff and then get the cheap. Well, shipping is not particularly cheap anymore, but because Japanese shipping is very expensive right now. So the best way to do that is to buy from one seller and then just bundle a bunch of games together to keep the cost down. But anyway, so I'd always recommend Japan Retro Direct per usuals there. Otherwise, though, I think I'll need to figure out where these videos are going. I might have more like laid back video at the end of the month. If not, otherwise, we'll see where things are going. So yeah, but I think that's going to be it, though. Again, you can, if you want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on most podcast platforms. Just look up One Control Report there. If you can't find it on your platform, you can find other platforms on anchor.fm, where it lists out what platforms I'm on for One Control Report. If you want to watch the video version of this, where I'm just talking at your face, that is at youtube.com. You can go look at it there. I will say I changed how the YouTube stuff is listed for streams and podcasts, so they're now unlisted. That did do a pretty big hit on me in terms of watch time, but in researching it, it seemed like, depending on the type of content, how long it is, what the watch time is for each video and things like that, for streams and stuff, it can negatively affect your main videos and things like that. So I think it might overall be for the best, even though I have significantly less watch time now. But I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the YouTube thing. You guys know my frustration with the YouTube thing. So trying to figure that stuff out always. But yeah, so podcasts and streams are going to be unlisted, but they still are on the playlists on YouTube. You can find the playlists on the main channel. Also, if you go to my website, everything on the website is still listed there, so you can still watch those videos and things like that from there as well. So just won't be in the video tab on YouTube, and it won't get like mixed into the algorithm, and hopefully not. Hopefully it makes that when YouTube suggests my content, it's more consistently the good stuff rather than just me talking on a stream for 3 hours kind of thing. So we'll see how it goes, though. I try to do what I can to make the YouTube stuff better, but the more and more I push for it, the more and more frustrated I get for I don't know what to do. I don't know what makes good things work and how the pieces come together. So if you know, let me know. Feedback is always helpful, because I don't know what I'm doing with all this stuff. I like to make videos about video games. I don't like making thumbnails and managing a YouTube channel. Although I like managing the website, I feel a little better about for some reason. I don't know. But anyways, that's it for this week. Thank you again. I hope you guys have a great week. Bye.